The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Wednesday. I see 5 of us here. Let me see who's all. So we got Ard here, we got Mikhail here, Nick here, and Philip is here. So let's hang on a couple seconds and see if the other guys are going to hop on first. I know you guys are muted right now, but I'll unmute you as soon as we see everybody else going through. If you hear a little noise in the background, that is my dog just bumping around. So, all right, we got Brent just joined. All right, and let's see, I'm not sure if Jamie's going to be here. Perhaps he will be. All right, I'm going to unmute you guys, so go ahead and say hi.
Howdy. Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey. How's it going, guys? All right, so I got Ard, got Brent, got Mikhail, got Nick, and got Philip. Jamie's not here, but we're just going to go ahead and kind of start. He'll probably hop in at some point. Mikhail, got a question. Okay, cool. Wait, Mikhail, you don't have a mic or anything like that? No worries if you don't. Cool. Okay, so let's dive right in. Welcome, everybody. I know that the assignment last week was definitely a hard one, so I appreciate all your effort. And the big reason why I pushed the deadline is because I saw you all chugging towards it and making progress and doing really good work. So that in and of itself is a lesson. If you're working with a client or you're working with several clients on several projects and you just see, okay, there's no way I'm going to make the deadlines or there's no way I'm going to hit this on time, then communication and effort are the two biggest things that are going to give you that leeway when you're working with clients. So it's not up here on my 10 lessons from Titans, but that's one thing I did want to point out. If I hadn't seen any work, if I hadn't seen any communication at all, and then someone came to me on Friday morning and said, "Hey, I'm not going to make it," it would not have been received as well. Hey, Jamie's here. Cool. What's up? Let me unmute you real quick. So let that be a lesson. It's a big part of. All right, Jamie, you're on mute. It's a big part of being a freelancer. Okay. So. Like I said, not one of the 10 lessons from the actual piece, but take that away from it as well. Show your work. Some of the best ways to do that, like especially during a research phase, if you're working with clients, you say you got an 8-week window to do this thing. A lot of the research happens just organically. You're reading books and you're checking websites out. You're talking to people, doing all that kind of stuff. The better and the more you can record of that process, the better it's going to be because you can communicate that to the client. As long as the client knows that you're working and you're pushing forward and that you are actively engaged in the process, they're going to be completely fine with most of the stuff, even if you have to push deadlines or if you have to ask for extra stuff or whatever you need to do. So that is a big takeaway from the project in general. But we've got 10 lessons that I wanted to discuss. Hopefully you guys can see the whole screen, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So we're just going to go through these 10 lessons. Some of them might be longer than others, and I'll explain as we go through, but try and get through this in a decent amount of time. I know you guys are busy and you got client work. So, all right, yes, Jamie, got your questions. So, all right, the first lesson to take away from this Titans piece is that length is money. So a lot of times it's really tempting to write something that is shorter or that can do the job in less words or something like that. And there's something to be said for clarity. But with all told, if all things hold steady, length equals money. The longer the sales letter is, the longer the VSL is, the more engaging it will be for the right type of prospects and the more people you're going to convert. Because that length then translates into stuff that you can do, like putting more testimonials in, putting more stories in, handling more objections that the person might have, having more bonuses in there, things that really push people off the fence. Because especially with sales letters like this direct response sales letter, Titan, is a traditional sales letter, not a VSL. And so people can just scroll to the bottom and see what the price is and where the button is. They don't have to read all this stuff. Most of them, some of them, won't read all this stuff. Some people will bounce off. Some people will skim through, go to the bottom. Mikhail, I know you said that when you bought this thing, you just went to the bottom, you skimmed it, saw some of the stuff, and went to buy it immediately. So one thing to understand about long-form copy and long-form sales letters, you're not writing to convince the skimmers who are already going to buy the product. There's a saying in sales where if you have 10 people, then 2 of those people are just going to buy it. You could mess everything up in the book, and as long as the offer is good, then they're going to buy it. Your salesmanship has nothing to do with it. And then there are 3 people out of those 10 who won't buy it, no matter how good you are. There is nothing you can possibly do on this earth to convince them to buy it. No, even if the offer is really good and they need the product and they're the right audience. Now, in between is where good salespeople and good copywriters make their money, because those are the ones that you can convince, given the right amount of time, given the right amount of objection handling, all that kind of stuff. So when you're writing copy, when you see something this long and you go, oh God, nobody's going to read that. Well, you're right in some ways. Some people are going to skim through this, but you're also completely wrong, because somebody who's looking at this and going, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to spend this money, or I don't know if I need this right now, maybe I'll get it later. You're writing the letter to them. You're writing the letter to the people who are on the fence. And so we'll talk about that a little bit in the target market, but I wanted to hit on the point that length equals money if all things hold steady. So here's what needs to hold steady in order to convince people that to keep reading, to keep watching the VSL, to read the advertorial or the white paper, whatever it is that you guys are actually writing. You need to hit the big 4. And we talked about this in previous webinars, but I've never explained it specifically like this. The big 4 are the target market, the market awareness level, the market sophistication level, and the primal desire. Those are the big 4, all right? So I'll write that down here just so you guys have it in the notes. But those big 4 are the things that make or break a sales piece. If those are off, it doesn't matter how good your copy is. You're not gonna hit the mark. And if those things are on, then your copy can be met and still actually do pretty well. Because as long as the offer's good, which means it's actually something the target market wants or needs or anything like that, and you hit the big 4, then your copy can be decent and still convert really well. So like I said, it is the target market, the awareness level, the sophistication level, and the primal desire. All right. So Mikhail, I know you mentioned that in one of the posts on the group that you didn't quite know what these meant, the awareness level and the sophistication level. You said that you had breakthrough advertising. Go ahead and read the first couple chapters of those and check it out. That's what I'm talking about here. That's the best explanation I can give. You can go back through some of the training and I give some examples, more modern stuff, because Gene wrote that back in 1960. But if you need more info on it, then that's the best place to go get it. The target market, again, just to really recap, that's the people that you're targeting and the people who can benefit most from the offer. That's enormous. It's important to hit, and it's something that a lot of copywriters don't put enough thought into, and a lot of business owners barely put any thought into, because if you ask a business owner who the right market is for his product, he'll tell you everyone, or as much of everyone as he can get. So finding the target market, finding the right person for the offer is extremely important. And finding out what their awareness level is, which just means how aware are they of the product and or the problem that they are experiencing. Is it a very bad problem that they just don't know there's a product for it? Do they know there is a product that solves their need? They just need to know what the cost is. Things like that. Awareness level is important. Sophistication level is your competitors. Basically, what are the competitors doing in the realm of your market. What are the messages they're sending? What are the prospects seeing from your competitors? Because that's how sophisticated your market's going to be. And the primal desire. The primal desire, the easiest way, there are more than these obviously, but the easiest way to think about the primal desire is from the 7 deadly sins. If you can link one of the deadly sins to your product and find the way that the target market thinks about that primal desire. So if it's pride, do they see it as something where they'll be put on a higher status if they own it or whatever? If it's lust, do they feel like they're going to, get more chicks, or they're going to be perceived as sexier to the opposite sex, or whatever it is? Primal desire is a good way to frame what the market wants, and then you find out how the market talks about it by researching the target market and the sophistication level. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, quick question, Lucas. Does that include on the primal desire scarcity as well?
Scarcity is not a primal desire. It's more of a fear. So the desire is built into those 7 deadly sins, right? So if it's, I just use those as a really easy go-to framework. But let's say it's sloth. People are lazy, and certain target markets are lazier than others. They don't want to work, or maybe they don't want to work that hard on the thing that you're offering. So that's something that they desire. Part of them wants to think that there is an easier way to do things, and that's part of their desire. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So with scarcity and urgency and exclusivity, things like that, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Those things are fears that can drive people to action, because every single person has this, scale in their head where they're moving away from pain and towards pleasure. But something where you're scaring them is not enough of a motivation. You have to have that desire built into it, even if it's some sort of aspirational desire. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. Let me just write this down. All right. Okay, so target market. So, like I said, if you hit the big 4, then the length matters, and the longer you can make it, the better. Now, the target market for this piece, I'm curious, what do you guys think the target market is for this sales letter?
Copywriters.
Copywriters?
I'd say, yeah, copywriters or marketers that don't think they've yet hit the spot.
Okay, so we got copywriters, we got marketers. Who else?
Business owners, maybe.
Business owners.
So it's ones that haven't necessarily achieved what they want to achieve. So medium sort of area of the market in that regard.
So they're business owners who are unsatisfied with their business results. I mean, that's everybody. That's literally every business owner there is. So the reason I bring this up is because the target market is actually a more difficult question than a lot of people give it credit for. Who is the target market? Who are you marketing to? Now, at first glance, when you look up here, titans of direct response, the event of the decade, bringing up Dan Kennedy, talking about these people, Craig Clemens. If you take, the pizza shop owner from down the street, he's not going to have a fucking clue who any of these people are. And on top of that, he's not going to care. He doesn't care who Greg Ranker is, even though Greg Ranker's a legend in direct response TV. He's not going to care who Dan Kennedy or J. Abraham are. So business owners is too broad of a target market. And if you're speaking to that broad of a target market, you're going to miss everybody else. You're going to miss the people who say, oh, this isn't for me. You're going to miss the people who say, oh, I'm above that, or I'm not part of that, or I'm this, or I'm that, and all that kind of thing. So broad is not a good idea for target market. But when you go down, you go, okay, fine. Not business owners. Maybe business owners who are in a direct response industry. So they either sell an info product, they sell some sort of mail order product. Maybe they're e-commerce driven, but they use a lot of cold traffic and they know about this world. So they would recognize these names, these direct response names, somebody who's familiar with direct response, right? That narrows the field by quite a large margin. Most people don't even know direct response exists. I mean, if you take a grand scheme of business owners, they don't know that the art and science of direct response exists. So you narrow it down to people who know about direct response. But then you narrow it down even further, because the people who know about direct response aren't necessarily the people who are going to come in here and buy a DVD set of a single seminar, right? They might not know the power of direct response. They might be just getting into it. They might be one of those wannabe stages where they're just kind of like reading a couple things, running a couple forums or whatever. So what you're looking at is actually successful direct response marketers and business owners and successful copywriters who want to up their game. So again, because what, somebody meant, I think, Brent, you mentioned copywriters. If a copywriter sees this, right? Somebody who literally just went on the Cult of Copy and said, how do I learn copy? Right? They're going to see this and they're going to go, holy shit. Like, what is this? First off, why does it matter to me? And what will it do for me right now? And when they start reading this, they can get massively intimidated. Like a junior copywriter, not even a junior copywriter, someone who's just starting out in copy goes, holy crap. But then on top of that, they're wondering, okay, is this right for me right now? Maybe I need this later. Maybe this is something I go buy later, or I go buy when I've got my first client or whatever, right? You're dealing with those kinds of objections. Every single time you niche down into your target market, you're going to deal with different types of objections and different types of reasons for buying or not buying. And that's why it's so important to niche down and get as deep as you can into that target market. So if you're talking just to beginner copywriters, then this letter would look different up here. It wouldn't talk about titans. It wouldn't talk about, faces like this, because for a brand new copywriter, they want to know that they're going to get taught from scratch. They're going to get taught the basics, right? This is stuff that's like PhD level direct response, and you're talking to a freshman. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of people can get intimidated by that. So when you go down to the target market and you look at it, then, okay, successful direct response marketers, successful copywriters who want to up their game, successful affiliate or digital marketers who earn their money through direct response principles, successful e-commerce companies that use direct response principles, things like that. People who are successful, people who know these people, right? And people who are already extremely interested in Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, Joe Sugarman, Perry Marshall, people like that, right? People that they know some of these names, they look at all the other ones, they recognize everyone. And so now you're dealing with that target market. And now you have to say, okay, what does this target market want? And how does this product deliver that to that target market? Okay. What does this target market want? And how does this product deliver that to the target market? So what they want in this case, if you are a successful direct response business owner, those people want an edge. They want something that helps them compete. They want something that helps them get that extra bit of conversion, that extra bit of sales, that next big idea that is going to push them forward. That's what they want. They don't want 175 headlines. They don't want a basic VSL template or something like that. They want an edge. They want something that will help them compete, and they want something that will help expand their knowledge. And when they see this, they start salivating because they see treasure troves of knowledge from these people who they idolize. And they're like, okay, one of these things can make me a shitload of money. I obviously need to buy it. Okay. So with that target market, you've got an extremely aware audience, right? Someone who's at level 1 pretty much, possibly level 2 of awareness, where they are very aware of the product, And they just need to know what the deal is. They need to know how to get it, pretty much. If there's a discount, maybe some bonuses or whatever. Or level 2, where they don't necessarily know about your product, but they know about their desire. They want an edge. They want to solve the problem by coming out and getting that big idea, right? So very, very high awareness level, extremely high sophistication level too. They've seen it all. Right? They've seen everyone in this, and their brother try and come in and sell them something. And they do it to their customers. They know exactly how to do this kind of stuff. And so when they see it, it needs to be a combination of fresh and interesting to them, but also a combination of doing the right things in their eyes. So this is a sales letter written to direct response people. If you start messing up things in a sales letter to direct response people, they're going to throw you out as a non-expert. Does that make sense? And all of this is found by digging into the target market. Sorry, did someone say something? No, everybody gets that, right?
Yes.
Okay, you're all pretty quiet. So the target market is successful business owners who want to get an edge. Now that leads to the, I'll call it the Mikhail problem, right? I know you can't say anything, Mikhail, but you actually brought up a really good point. When Mikhail found out about these DVDs, because his awareness was so high, because his sophistication level was so high, he went, he looked, he skimmed, and he bought. That was it. He spent, I don't know how many, he probably spent less than a couple minutes on the page to go buy a $2,000 product, right? So why write a 66-page sales letter to someone who's going to spend 2 minutes on the page and then go buy a $2,000 product? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it makes sense, but not for that person. So that person looks, sees the page, scrolls, sees how freaking long it is, and goes, holy crap, okay, the length is good, the length makes sense, this is a valuable product, I already know that I want it, maybe I'll skim and read a couple things, but I'm going to buy it. The length by itself is an authority play and a social proof play. By itself. I mean, how many times have you hopped onto a product and seen a sales letter that looks really, really good, and you already know you want the product, but that made you feel a little better? That the sales letter was really long and it looked really good and it wasn't cheesy. For us marketers, right? Sorry, Mikhail, go ahead.
It was me, I said yes. I agree.
Sorry, so Mikhail hop up. But yeah, it's an authority play. And that's why length equals money for a lot of these things if you've hit the big four. But also, so you don't have to write a 66-page sales letter to convince people to buy this DVD set. You just don't. You could say, these are the people who were there. There's a shitload of secrets in there. You need to buy it. And most people would buy it. But what the sales letter does really effectively is speak to the other part of that target market. And that's the part that says, I need this, but maybe not right now. They're the people on the fence. Because there's always several different types of buyers. There's the people who skim. There's the people who go up and down and try and figure things out. There's the people who read everything. They read every line and they go through and they look at it. But then there's the people who are on the fence. The people who just say, well, you know what? I want this. I'm not really sure if it's right for me right now. Maybe I'll go get it later. Maybe I'll come back to it. Maybe I'll bookmark it and put it in my file or my wish list or whatever that kind of thing is. Those people are the 4 to 5 that I talked about earlier in those 10, right? So Mikhail was one of those 2 people who was going to buy no matter what. Now, this long sales letter is designed to capture more of those people in the middle, the people on the fence, the people who need some sort of convincing, they need some sort of, reason or driver or something to that effect. And one thing that this sales letter does not do, at least in my opinion, it doesn't do very effectively, is show a amount of urgency to this offer. It only shows urgency at the very, very end, which I'll scroll through here. I'm sorry if you're getting motions. But the only time they ever show urgency in this entire letter is pretty much right at the bottom, where he says, right here, I'm not interested in being in the DVD business. I printed 450 copies of these DVDs, and they're about half gone. Right? That's pretty much the only time he talks about urgency. I mean, and he uses a scarcity play to do it, but basically once they're gone is an urgency play and a scarcity play built into the same thing. So this would be an even more effective letter if he built that urgency into the piece. You know, a countdown
Can I ask a
timer,
question on that?
number. Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
Do you think that that's in the PS for those people that do perhaps go from top to bottom and then think, all right, I need to read this?
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely there for those people who are still on the fence after reading the entire thing. But at the same time, the writer of this, Roy Furr, could have put that urgency in more often. It could have put it at the beginning, you know, up here saying only 450 copies and they're half gone, something to that effect. Now the question is it true? Like, is that level of urgency true? And I'm not sure, personally. I don't know Brian. I don't know if Brian only has a certain number of these. I don't think so. I don't think the urgency is true. So part of that needs to be true. If there's a countdown timer on this thing and it says for the next 24 hours only, or only good through midnight, and then it resets every day, it's going to lose a shit ton of trust with this target market, right? So that's something to consider. But that's
how would you have added the urgency, but not scammed in that regard?
Well, it depends on the reality of it. So if he's only going to sell 450 of these, then I would plaster that all over. Be like, there are only 450 copies, and as of this date, which I could dynamically update that date and dynamically update the number from the shopping cart. It's not that difficult technologically.
Yeah.
You say, this is how many are left. And that's pretty effective. Tech allows us to do some pretty cool stuff, especially. But I would put that up here. I would probably put it in the beginning, like Titans of direct response, and then hype up the content of the event a little bit more. Fly on the wall for a historic event, all this kind of stuff. My headline would be slightly different if I was going to go with urgency and go with pushing it. But for what the purpose is, that's how I would change it. But
And if it was an evergreen sort of thing?
If it was an evergreen thing, then you
like
can't
it
really.
Seems to be.
Yeah, you can't really do urgency with evergreen. You can do scarcity in the sense of we have certain amounts of, like, basically we buy this many per quarter. We buy, let's see, I'm trying to think of a concept. So I worked on a supplement product that only had a certain amount of bottles before they sold out, and it took them X number of weeks to get more bottles. So that's a significant form of scarcity you can use in a letter. Let's see.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways. Let's go see scarcity and urgency. All right. So that's target market. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
Real quick, Lucas, on the length equals money. So you're saying the length equals money on the sales letters. Does that include VSLs? That's my first question. And also, you're saying length equals authority and credibility. Was that what you're saying?
Yes. So on your first question, it does include VSLs. If all things are the same, so basically if you hit the big four and you're not doing anything extra stupid in the letter or in the VSL, then length is better because it's going to help knock more people off the fence. So think about it like if you've got a room full of people, and let's say there's 100 people in that room, and you start telling your story and doing your sales pitch, and 10 people leave automatically because it's not for them. And then slowly throughout your talk, more people leave as you're talking. And you end up with a core group of like 30 people when you close your product. And as soon as you start the close of the product, 10 of those people run to the back of the room and buy the product immediately out of the 100 that you started with.
Mm-hmm.
The remaining 20 people need to hear something else. They need to either hear their objection handled, they need to hear another story that relates better to them, they need to hear a reason to act right now. they need to hear something. And so the longer you can talk and the more you can talk about, the more of those people you're going to capture when all things are steady. Make sense?
Totally.
Okay. All right. So this next one, number 8, how it was written. So when you guys saw this, and Jamie, you talked about this a couple times when you were writing the thing, you're like, holy shit, this is long. It's 66 pages if you print it out on PDF, and you guys put in way more handwritten pages than that, right? So how this thing was written. The interesting thing about how this was written, because I know Roy, and I know kind of like how Roy works. I bought some of his stuff. I've talked with him personally. The funny thing is, it was harder for you guys to handwrite this letter than it was for Roy to write this letter. So hand copying it was harder than actually writing it. And I'll explain why. So this video right here, this video made itself at the event. It was awesome. A ton of testimonials came in just from people who were there, and everybody there knew how to give a fucking testimonial. So it wasn't something they had to be coached on. They just had to be put in front of a camera and told to talk about the awesome event, right? This image right here, $5 on Fiverr. Like, it's cheap as hell to get an image that looks like this. All of these images right here, pulled straight from their websites. All this kind of stuff. All of these bios, pulled straight from the speaker bios from the event, pulled straight from their website. He didn't write any of these. They wrote these, right? So start thinking about what actually came from Roy, like what actually was something that he wrote and created, right? Mount Rushmore, these pictures, these names, my own personal mastermind, most powerful direct response principles from the desk up. Okay, so now we start seeing Roy a little bit, right? This is a little bit of Roy, a little bit of Roy. He's talking about standing on the shoulders of giants. They're not all self-made. A little bit of Roy. And now you can do this too, right? So from here, down here, more be revealed below, all the way up to Desk of Brian, that's Roy. That's copy, right? He's talking to the desire of the market as they read through this thing. Now, once you get past that point, you're going to start seeing him talking about the copywriters and talking about the different speeches that they do. So this is where Roy basically just sat down with the DVDs and started typing out bullets as he watched them. The DVDs themselves, the content from the DVDs, the content from the speakers, right here, created all of these bullet points, every single one of them. So he just watched the video, for an hour and wrote down bullet points as they popped up to him. So he just watched the seminar.
That's the impression that I got.
Yep. That's all he did. And so he wrote a 66-page sales letter, but in reality, his copy, his creativity was basically from here down to about, maybe a little bit through the Gary Vee thing. But once he starts getting into their actual presentations, that's all content from the event, 100%. Dan, spoken to marketers of every level of sophistication, blown away. All this stuff comes from Dan. All this stuff comes from his website. Go down here. All this stuff comes from their website, comes from their results, right? He didn't write this stuff. He's not convincing them. He's just going through the content. Bing, 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 bing. So for him, writing these things was extremely easy because he just watched a bunch of content, wrote about it, and as a copywriter, basically threw his thoughts in there a little bit. And so when you're writing for your clients' products, one of the best things you can possibly do is go through their product and do exactly that. Just start writing bullets, start writing your thoughts on the product, start writing the things and the hooks, the interesting things you find about it, right? If you have to go back through and edit out some content so that you don't give anything away, that's fine. But it's one of the most effective ways to actually write a great sales letter about the product because it does something that we'll talk about on number 5 over here, the ownership experience. but it also makes your job a shitload easier because you don't have to be that creative. You just let the product sell itself. If you're selling a really shitty product, then that's on you. But a lot of this stuff, like this seminar, literally sells itself. The people who show up and go, oh shit, Ken McCarthy talked and Dan Kennedy talked and Gary Benchavenga talked, I'm buying this. It sells itself. But when you talk to the people who are sitting on the fence, they want to know, okay, what is the reason to act right now? What is the thing that I need in my business right this second? And that's what these bullets are for, and that's what these breakdowns are for. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So the longest sales letter that you guys have ever handwritten, and this beast of a fucking thing, was actually extremely easy to write. And I think that's a mindset shift.
It's the longest sales letter we'll ever write. I'll add to that.
Yeah. Yep. So hopefully that shifts your mindset a little bit. Jamie, I saw that when you were doing it, you kind of went, holy shit,
I could see how you could write those sections. They were just all individual things, and like you say, you got the info from the DVDs.
Right. He's not being creative. So that's a big deal when you're writing these big projects. And like I said, length is money. So if you've already hit the big four and you've done your research right, if you need to write a longer sales letter, let the product do it for you. So it's a big, it's something that you'll definitely want to think about working into your writing, because a couple other things that I'll bring up here that matter as far as length. But let's talk about the use of exclusivity and scarcity. So that's another big takeaway when you look at this. I guess when you look at this entire thing as a whole, you're going to start seeing stuff where Roy drops in the exclusivity pieces. So when we talk about Gary B, hey, what's going on over there? All right. So when he talks about Gary B has never spoken except at his own retirement event. So the fact that he spoke here is amazing, right? This is basically the only chance that you get to hear Gary B talk.
Is there someone in a bar fight or?
You make it out alive there?
Yeah.
I think the paper's got the best of him. The desk, I don't know.
I guess we have to take it from here, guys.
Yeah.
All right. So, sorry. Basically, starting with Gary V, you start seeing Roy talk about the exclusivity of it. And then he mentions, okay, so Gary has only ever spoken once before. He's never spoken anywhere else. But I can't find it. Where is it in here? I think he says, breaks his vow of silence, now or ever on these DVDs. Let's see. I'm trying to find it for you guys, but you guys wrote it. Basically, in here, he's one of the bonuses they tack on is this other seminar. So they mentioned that the
Benchavenga 100.
Yeah, the Benchavenga 100. So he throws in here that that the only other place Benchavenga talked was at his retirement ceremony, and the only other way to get that is to buy into Ken McCarthy's super secret mastermind. That's it. But he said that you're going to get that stuff here. So people who are reading the copy, that's another reason. That's like exclusivity. Okay, this is the only place I can get Gary B stuff, and Gary B is one of those. If you can reach inside his brain into what's in there, you'll make hundreds of millions of dollars type people. So the sprinkling in of exclusivity and scarcity and the use of secrets and the use of cutting edge knowledge and unheard of stuff and never before taught and all that kind of stuff is really, really heavy in this sales letter. So because aside from Gary, a lot of these people who are here are extremely well published. I mean, these guys are all working copywriters, so learning from them is extremely powerful. But guys like Dan Kennedy, guys like Ken McCarthy, Jay Abraham, and even guys like Ryan Lee, Joe Sugarman are all extremely well published. And so if you're a successful direct response marketer, you've likely seen a ton of their content. And the last thing that you want is for Dan Kennedy to go up and give another one of his speeches, something you've already heard. Jay Abraham talking about the freaking principle of eminence or something like that. What is it? Preeminence, principle of preeminence again. And so a big part of what Roy did throughout this entire letter was use that exclusivity, use that scarcity, use that like once in a lifetime type messaging, because it's something that kind of really raises the desire of these marketers and these people who want this type of thing. So when you understand your target market, you start understanding what their trigger points are, what are the things that make them want to buy it. And for a lot of these direct response guys, and especially successful business owners in general, getting access to that kind of secret knowledge is extremely compelling. And you'll see that sprinkled throughout the letter. So if you know that something is extremely compelling for your target market, whether it's in, like, let's call it weight loss, you're teaching women how to lose weight, lose fat, then one of the things that they really, really want is to look sexy again, or to be admired or to be adored, things like that. That's one of their core desires. And so if you sprinkle in words like, adore, adoration, sexiness, looking in the mirror, loving yourself, other people loving you, like you sprinkle all that kind of stuff into your letter, then that's something that is, each one of those things impacts that target market in a very visceral way. And that's why Roy did it. So hopefully that makes sense. I wanted to bring that up in case, I know you guys wrote through it, but I didn't know if you noticed that. So let's talk about bonuses a little bit. Skype's on for somebody. I can hear the typing. Oh, no, that's me. Okay, so bonuses. Why would you have bonuses for a thing like this? Anybody got any ideas?
Close the sale?
Got to experience everything. So
Hey, Nick, you're saying something, but you're really faint. I can barely hear you.
oh, sorry, can you hear me?
A little bit.
Quiet.
Oh, it might just be my mic.
Okay.
I would say that because those people got to experience it in the flesh, and so if you're watching the DVDs, it's kind of extra little something.
That's an extremely good insight. So this was a live event and you're just getting the recordings. So I think I remember when the live event came out, I'm pretty sure it was a $10,000 event. You're getting the recordings for $2,000, but you miss something. Most people who've been to live events, especially small masterminds like this, you miss it. And even the talks in the back room, all that kind of stuff create enormous amounts of value out and above beyond the actual content. So by adding those bonuses, you definitely give them an extra oomph. You're like, okay, well, I'm getting something that the seminar people did not get. And that's pretty cool. So yeah, Nick, that's an awesome insight. Good job.
Thanks.
The other component to it, so that extra insight of people getting something that the seminar owners didn't get, or the seminar attendees didn't get. The bonuses are something that knocks more people off the fence. Like in the same way that if you're going to buy something from a product launch that some guru is sending out right now, most people will wait until the affiliate launch to get the bonuses that the affiliates give out, just because that's what they do. They know what's going to happen. They know that the bonuses will come out, and so they're going to bonus shop around because they want to get the most for their money. That's the same thing that's happening here. And so when you're talking to your target market and they kind of expect things like bonuses or expect things like extra little add-ons, then when you give them that, it gives them that certainty, but it also gives them one more reason to act. They're like, okay, well, this was really, really good, but I was really sad that I didn't get the original Venture Venga DVDs. So now that I'm getting those, that seals the deal. I got it. It's done. It's for me, right? And then any one of the other bonuses that they throw in here. So even for a product that's somehow, or that seemingly sells itself, bonuses are important. You know, it's just, again, it's moving past that, moving past the 2 people who are going to buy and getting into that group of 4 people who will buy or who might buy. That's what bonuses are for.
Lucas.
Yep.
He also used an exclusive bonus. That's what I noticed. Also, there was another interview with Gary Bensavenga, I think by Ken McCarthy, and it's also not for sale and only available if you're part of his system seminar, or system club. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You get it. You get the bonus with this product, so it's also a bonus, but also exclusivity.
Yep. Yep. That's a good point. Yep. I'm trying to find it. I think I just saw it. It was up here in the Gary B stuff. Pull back the curtain. No, that was something.
Or Ken McCarthy's part,
Yeah.
I think.
Probably in one here. But yeah, so the bonuses can definitely include exclusivity, and it can include urgency too. So if you have a evergreen offer, like you were asking about earlier, Jamie, you can use bonuses as a form of urgency, because you can say for only the month of March or for only this week, we're offering this extra bonus for it. You can use bonuses as those extra kickers that move people to take action, that kick people off the fence. And that's basically why they're included every single time. All right, cool. So let's go down to the ownership experience, about 1247 right now. So the ownership experience is something important that that most products kind of miss when they're selling it. By taking someone through what is actually going to happen when they own the product or when they get the product, and showing them the experience they're going to have when they get it, then you're building a very psychological foundation of them already owning the product. And that, that gets deep into the philosophy and psychology of sales and marketing. But what you'll notice is this entire sales letter is a ownership experience. From the very beginning, there's a tiny bit of copy, but then you're launched right into the ownership experience of actually owning the DVDs already. I'm going to find out. I've got some background noise.
There's a lot of it.
All right. Looks like it was Mikhail. It was Mikhail. All right. Sorry, Mikhail. I muted you. So the ownership experience, this entire letter is an ownership experience. The reason for that is because those people that are sitting on the fence are trying to figure out how it's going to work for them. And by reading through this entire thing, they can think, okay, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And that's what this entire letter is built to do, is show them what it's going to be like to own these DVDs. And so if you can do that in your products and show them what it's going to be like, using these fascination bullets, using these these descriptions of what's going on and some of the results that people are getting from the stuff that they learned and all this kind of stuff, then that's going to build that psychological foundation in your prospect's mind to believe they already own it or believe they should already own it. And that's something to take away from this, see how he did it. By going through the product, writing down the fascination things like this thing, go to the liar's paradox and how to multiply your business 10x when your competitors are stuck. That's awesome. First reaction, what is Perry talking about? Next, wow, that's powerful. Just this little bullet right here makes you go, oh, okay. This one little insight that Perry talks about, how is that going to affect me and what I do? So that ownership experience is something that you cultivate throughout the entire letter. But in this case, that's all this letter is pure ownership. So I wanted to bring that up because if you can use that in your copy, you're going to get more conversions, period. A lot of copywriters leave it out. They just try and sell the damn thing. And that's the wrong answer for a lot of stuff. Software. This works really well with software, where you can take someone through actually using the software and show case studies of actually owning it. If you want to see really good example of that right now with software as a service, go to Lead Quizzes, the site Lead Quizzes. They do a really good job of showing off the software in a way that makes you feel like you already own it. You know, they're kind of teaching you how to use the software even if you don't have it yet. So that's one thing that's pretty cool. So the last thing that I want to bring up before I talked about why I actually assigned it is the use of the speaker testimonials at the bottom. So this is specific to seminars or webinars or things like that, or if you're selling recordings or anything like anything where multiple people are giving information. But when we go down to the bottom, you start to see, where is it the first time? Yeah, right here. So you start going down here and they start going into the testimonials, but don't take my word for it. The first thing you see is a testimonial from Dan Kennedy. And the next thing you see is a testimonial from Greg from Goofy Ranker. And the next thing you see is Gary Benchavenga and Jay Abraham and Paris and Richard. So like all these people who actually spoke at the event are giving amazing testimonials about the event. And then it makes you go, okay, besides the fact that all of these people are here and giving their amazing information, they stayed and they learned from the other stuff. So if these guys who's, you know, this guy who's worth $1.8 billion and Dan Kennedy who's worth X and notorious for leaving all the time because I know that, then if they're staying with it, then this is another fence kicker. This is something that knocks other people off the fence because they're like, okay, fine. You know, this all sounds really great, but if these people got something from it, then I have to get it. It's something, you know, it's not just some hype fest. It's not some pitch fest. It's not, you know, the thing I'm worried it's going to be. It's truly the real deal. So I wanted to...
Can I ask a question there, please?
Yeah.
Is that like, if, you know, obviously I can see how that could be done and has been done with this letter. It's kind of a natural progression. For other things, would that be like celebrity endorsements to some extent?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, so celebrity endorsements, which you can purchase if you need to. You just go onto websites and basically buy their words or buy their face. That's fine. If you can find a well-known testimonials or I'm trying to think of an example that I've seen besides this letter doing this. So there might be an event like the Yannick Silver's Underground event, I believe, did this before they stopped it after number 10, where previous attendees, guys like, you know, Dan Kennedy and all that, were basically saying, go to this event. Trying to think about non-internet marketing industries. There's, if you go check out Mind Valley, I don't know if you guys have heard that. So Mind Valley is a good example of some great direct response in the personal development space. And Mind Valley, I believe, uses a lot of their bigger gurus to sell some of their smaller gurus, some of their new people. And that's something to look at. If you're in fitness, you can do this through partnering or affiliates. If you're in finance, you can do this through proxy by talking about something that another big investor already invested in and attaching that to your product. Or you can use it directly by, you know, this investor subscribes to my newsletter, this, you know, or this investor says my newsletter is great, that kind of thing. So it's applicable in every industry. Sorry, what?
On a very sort of like hands-on, as in applicable to us. If we were to like, obviously you mentioned in the past, and we mentioned about using the fact that we're being mentored by you as a potential hook, but then presumably once we're through this and we get some solid feedback and you're happy basically to put your name next to ours, and if to say you know, so and so went through my course and he's really good at X, Y, and Z. Then we could say, look, this is what Lucas says about us. Jamie's copy does X, Y, and Z, or stuff like that. Is that along the right lines?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my plan all along. So when you guys got through this thing, we were going to either do some sort of co-promoted thing, or whenever you're putting out marketing, I'd be more than happy to give the testimonials you guys need, provided that, you know, the quality's there. So yeah, and that's something that, besides just me, you know, because I'm pretty well respected in these circles as far as copywriters go, but I'm not A-list. You know, I never claimed to be. And so if you can get people who are on the A-list to say other things, you know, like maybe get Brian Kurtz, who a lot of you just bought Breakthrough Advertising from, find some way to work with him or work with someone who knows him or something like that. I know Ard, he connected you with someone who's in Sweden. So things like that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more authority you can put into those testimonials, the better. You know, random testimonials are fine, but a testimonial from frickin' Dan Kennedy probably means more than whoever the hell this is. So actually, that's Suzanne Eastman, Vice President, Brand Leadership for Beachbody. Mark Ahrens, I don't know who that is. So Paul Martinez is another guy. Jennifer Petronis, yeah. So some of these people, cool, testimonials are great, but a handwritten note from Dan Kennedy kicks these testimonials' ass. Cool. All right, so let's see. We're at about an hour right now, so let's talk about why I signed it. So I had 3 big reasons why I signed it. Because I knew this was going to be a beast of a project, and I knew that this was going to be something unlike you guys have never done before. It was going to be hard. So I had 3 main reasons. I had a bunch of reasons, but 3 main reasons, and I wanted to discuss why I did it. So the first one, which I believe is kind of the most important for what we're learning in this program, is this is an example of a letter that was written to impress the client and not just to sell stuff. So this was written by Roy Furr for Brian Kurtz as his second letter ever. And he pulled out all the stops. He wrote, 66 pages of print, and did an absolute monster amount of work for it. And it impressed the client, and Brian's been running it ever since, and he never changed it. So because he did that, because Roy did that for Brian Kurtz, now Roy is in the know, and he's a major resource for not only for Brian, but for everyone that Brian knows and who he connects people with. So this letter was as much a pitch to Brian and Brian's contacts as it was an actual pitch for the DVD set. And anybody who asks, man, this letter was really long or this letter was really good, who wrote it is going to get his name for the answer. So when you guys are thinking, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, when you guys are thinking about your gurus, and when you guys are thinking about the people who can give you those big testimonials, this kind of stuff, especially because I showed you how it was written, is the stuff that is going to impress the client to the point where you're going to get those testimonials. You're going to get that clout that comes from it. And I think that's the number one reason why I assigned it, because I wanted you guys to get an experience for that and understand the depth of it. So the second reason is I wanted to break some limiting beliefs. Jamie, I just used you as an example, but I'm sure other people had the same feeling. Writing long sales copy is really intimidating. The longer the sales copy, the more intimidating it is. And a lot of people think I can't do it, but you just fucking hand wrote 66 pages of text and even more of that on the actual handwritten pages. And you did it in a week. You wrote the equivalent of half of a book in a week. And for a lot of people, that's impossible. They just can't wrap their brains around it. But now you guys have just done it. And that is something you can take with you and carry away from this program and take into your careers, because now you know what you're capable of. And you're probably capable of more because you guys were working. You had jobs, you had other clients, you had stuff to do. but you did it anyway. And so breaking those limiting beliefs and showing you that long copy isn't that scary and being able to show you what you're capable of in a short amount of time was another really big, important thing for me. So hopefully you guys got that. I know that a lot of you were annoyed by the project, but that was a big part of why I signed it. So that is my number 2 reason. It's also another one of those limiting beliefs where you think, well, I can't write for a big client, or I can't write for, someone like Agora or Hay House or Brian Kurtz or Guthrie Ranker or whatever like that. Like there's that kind of like barrier in your minds about, am I good enough? Am I, skilled enough? Are they going to pay attention to me? All that kind of stuff. Looking at this, looking at what Roy did, how he did it, and who he did it for is something that I wanted to show you, because it shows you just what is necessary, but also what is possible for breaking into those circles. And it's not something that's out of your reach. It's something that's very, very much in your reach, which is also why we're going through the guru exercise. So hopefully that makes sense, and hope you guys understand that.
Totally.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So the third reason I assigned it is because one of the biggest lessons I want to impress in this program, and one of the biggest problems I see in copywriting in general, is the lack of respect for skill. And there's a lot of courses out there that teach people how to get clients and how to get high ticket clients. And there's a lot of courses out there that teach you how to write basic copy, like they sell books and write basic copy and all this kind of stuff. But there's a general lack of respect for skill. And skill is different from talent. Some people are talented writers, but skill is something that you get from practice and you get from experience. And you also get skill from knowing the tricks of the trade. So besides the practice that you guys are doing every single week, and besides the experience you're getting from not only writing these things by hand, but also going through assignments and eventually the feedback we go through and kind of how I pick those pieces apart, those things are all going to give you skill. But on top of that, I wanted to show this letter to you, show you how it was written, who it was written by, who they targeted, why they targeted it, all those kinds of things, because you need to know the tricks behind the skill. For most people, a 66-page sales letter is too long, or even a 20-page or 30-page or 40-page sales letter is too long. But you guys now see how it's made. You guys now see how it's put together. And that is something you can carry forward with you. And that's something that nobody can ever take from you. And nobody ever teaches. Everybody says, this is the template, write out the template, figure out, and then, basically test it, see if it works. But there are tricks and there are ways to get through stuff. So that is the last thing that I really wanted to do. But so that's kind of the 10 lessons that I wanted to teach from Titans and why I assigned it in the first place. Do you guys have any questions?
I've got a question.
I've personally got to shoot, so I've got to get somewhere. So I'm going to sign out now and catch the rest another time. So thank you.
All right, man. See you, Jamie.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Go ahead, Brent.
Quick. This is related to the kind of the assignment we're working on now.
Okay.
I've noted. Basically, how do you shorten your time to write? That's my question, because I spent a lot of time last night pretty much doing research on all the different sales letters, setups. I've got David Frey, Perry Belcher, the one you gave me.
Mm-hmm.
With my blogs and stuff that I'm writing now, does it just take time to shorten your writing time? And then Mikhail might be able to, he's been doing this for a lot longer, and Art sounds like he's a content writer right now. What's your experience in that, and what would you say someone to myself, who's I've been writing blog posts for years, about 2-3 years, but my write time is just, and especially with copywriting now, is not as efficient. And how does that work?
So, the short answer and the easy answer is to say that it's all skill based, and so the more you do it, the faster you'll get, or the better you'll get. But the longer answer is, as you progress and as you learn, you'll learn little systems for yourself. Every writer is different. I'll give you an example. Do you guys read fantasy or medieval type stuff? You guys follow like Game of Thrones or the books, or what's up with that?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay. Basically, the author, George R.R. Martin, has been trying to write his latest book, which the show has already surpassed, because I'm sure you've heard of Game of Thrones, the show. The author hasn't written the latest book that the season is based off of. And he's been taking fucking forever. Now, he's a professional writer. He gets paid millions of dollars, not only in licensing fees, but also to write this story. And he can't put out a fucking book to save his life because he just has a different writing style. A lot of writers were the same way. A lot of writers just plodded along and couldn't write that fast. Other writers, like Stephen King, is a freaking machine. He spits out 20 or 30 pages a day. And other writers like James Patterson, the people who write those serial novels, whoever writes Daniel Steele, I forgot who did it. Maybe that is her. Those guys crank shit out. And those are just writers in general, not just copywriters specifically, but they crank shit out. And it's a mindset. So Stephen King, James Patterson, Daniel Steele, those people think I'm just going to get it on the page and then I'm going to edit later. And that's the speed. That's the speed thing. George thinks I'm going to write this right the first time and make sure that it's in line with everything that I want for it. And so he writes extremely slowly. You got to figure out what works for you. So what works for me, I'll tell you. And this is how I've always written. And the only thing that's changed is my voice and my ability to put things together in a sales copy format, because I've written a lot of it. I research the topic a shit ton. And I mean, I go deep. I click on every link. I maybe buy some books on it. I'll talk to people who are in the industry. Like, if I'm writing a piece on healthcare, I'll write, my mom's in healthcare. I'll talk to her. My father-in-law's in healthcare. I do all that kind of stuff. I do a shit ton of research. And then I essentially write what I think is going to be extremely persuasive. And then I go back through it and find all the stuff that proves what I just said. And I know that sounds really shitty, but I write it persuasively and then I go out and find evidence to support what I wrote about. And that's how I've always written. And it seems to work really well because when I flow, when I talk, I make logical points and then I back it up with data that I can find. Now, I will say that there's been a couple times where I've been writing for authors like Natural Health, honestly, specifically Natural Health, for some reason, that once I do the research and actually go and try and find, verifiable claims for what I just said, it isn't there. So that's always a problem, which makes you have to rewrite. But that's how I do it. And that's how I do it quickly. Like if I can, when I say I write a VSL in 6 hours, I've already done the research for it and I've already got a pretty good idea of how I'm going to hit the big four. And then I just sit down and do it. So that's my process. And it may be your process. It might not, but everybody has a different process. And I think the best way to do it is to write a lot and see what feels right for you.
So it's just the reps concept as well.
Yeah. I mean, muscle memory is a big part of it, especially writing, because right now, you guys saw what I posted in the Cult of Copy job board yesterday. At least some of you did. That was first draft. That was it. And so I didn't sit there and I didn't think about how I was going to place this word and who I was talking to and all that kind of stuff. But that was first draft. A lot of the stuff that I write for my own promotion is first draft. A lot of the VSLs that I write come off the oven, so to speak, pretty much done. But that's because I do a lot of upfront work beforehand, and I've kind of trained myself to say what I feel like I should say rather than blabbering or doing that kind of stuff.
So you're saying a VSL for 6 hours, does that include research or without research?
Without research.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, it depends on the research too. Like if it's something you have no idea, like you're not familiar with the market, it's going to take you a longer time to research it. Because not only do you have to figure out, okay, who are the players, what are the products, who are the competitors, all that kind of stuff. But when you start looking into these desire things, the target market, the awareness and the sophistication level is the easiest because you just look at competitors, but the awareness level is difficult because you have to figure out who you're actually talking to with your target market, and then you got to find out what their desires are. And once you figure all that out, you got to figure out how they communicate about their desires. So, they might have pride as their primary desire, their primal desire, but they might not see it as pride. Maybe they see it as becoming a conscious entrepreneur, or whatever they use, whatever the nom du jour is. So that's my process, I guess. Mentoring you guys, I'll be honest, mentoring you guys has forced me to put my process down on paper and actually get it down better. So that's something that I'm thankful for with this mentoring program personally. But what I go through and how I write is very unique, and most writers are the same way.
Copy. Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. So don't beat yourself up for writing slow or whatever. Just kind of understand that you take a certain amount of time to write something, and factor that into your pricing and your costs and all that kind of stuff.
Perfect.
Lucas, I've got a couple questions and then just one other comment.
Yeah.
So I know that we were talking about the primal desires.
Mm-hmm.
Is it always best to have more than less?
More primal desire?
Like more of the 7 deadly sins, so to speak? If we can include those, is it more beneficial to have more of them than just one?
Yes and no. So it's always beneficial to have ancillary desires. So if someone's main desire is to earn money, but their secondary desire is to be known as someone important or significant, right? So that's always good. But what you don't want to do is dilute the message. What I see a lot in copy is you're trying to hit all of the different desires that you can think of, when you should really be focusing on one, maybe two main desires, like deep desires, and then spend the rest of your time answering objections. So, because that one desire is going to be enough to keep them on the hook. You don't need to keep hitting their desires, or trying to grab as many of them as you can. The real problem is keeping them online interested and not coming up with an excuse to not buy it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
My second question is, I know that when you did this presentation, the way that you kind of explained it was, so Roy he saw the presentation and then he made the bullets from that.
Mm-hmm.
When you work something out with the client, do you kind of mention that as part of the contract you need to have a copy of it, of whatever they're selling?
Yes.
Because I'm more of it's like a presentation, like a DVD sort of thing, yeah, or like something online.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm selling information, then I almost always ask for that information.
Gotcha.
Unless it's something like a small thing, like maybe if it's an advertorial, I don't need the access for that.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much for every single one of the products I write for, if it's information-based, I'll need the information. Like I helped a leadership consultant who had basically no online media at all, but I had him ship his books to me. So, I had read through his books and got his, all that kind of stuff from it. That's the difference between like a fry cook and a general, basically, like what we talked about. So if you're really in it to help them and do a significant amount of work for them, then there should be no question that you should get access to all their stuff.
Great. I just had a little aside. As I was writing through this letter, I was thinking about that TV Tropes website we talked about, I think, a few webinars back.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this one called Avengers Assemble, which kind of plays on this whole idea of this dream team of experts coming together to for this one once in a lifetime thing. I just thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that TV Tropes website because everybody understands those stories and everybody like feels them. So yeah, this is definitely an Avengers Assemble style offer, but you see those a lot with, like events. Events use that kind of stuff all the time. Other like telesummits are becoming more popular, things like that. So you can start to see the stories that permeate everything when you look at that Tropes website and kind of link them with this stuff. So that's pretty good insight.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
I have one.
No.
Nobody else does.
All right, Art and Phil. Yeah, Phil, I just unmuted you. So go ahead, Art.
No, I just wanted to say I don't have any questions. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Do you have anything, Phil?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about like when you're trying to show them the experience so they kind of feel a sense of ownership.
Mhm.
How do you do that for something like, say, a physical product, where it's maybe preventative or something like that?
Do you have an example?
Something maybe like fish oil, or even like trying to think of something where it's kind of where the benefits aren't as clear even when you're like using it.
Yeah, so that's a couple interesting questions in the same question. Ownership experience of a physical product in general. If you can use the physical product, it's easier, but like physically, like you can show it, or you can describe it being shown. That's better. But with stuff like supplements, with basically the entire nutraceutical industry, I mean, when you think about it, a lot of what you talk about is the effect of using it if there is an effect. Like, you take a pre-workout and you feel the jolt and, you feel your muscles get pumped up and then you just feel like ready to take on the world. And, I had the best workout I ever had, that kind of stuff works for those. But for the not so direct stuff, you basically just talk, if you're providing an ownership experience, you talk about the results of the product at using it, and you use like specificity. You say, well, I was taking this fish oil, and after the first week, I noticed that my hair was softer. Or I was taking this fish oil, and after the first 2 weeks, I stopped having joint pain. And like that's kind of an ownership experience of feeling it. The closer you can make it to the point of sale, the better with anything. But then there's also another deeper question there, which is if you're selling something preventative, how do you do it? Human beings by nature are not, they don't like to buy prevention. Even though we've got all of these parables like, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Human beings are just not wired to do stuff that is not like in the moment. Right? It's very difficult for us. It requires willpower. But the interesting thing about prevention is that you won't do it for yourself, but you will sure as shit do it for people that you care about. And when you communicate the effects that your actions or non-actions have on others that you care about, it becomes a much, much more compelling sales conversation. And that's a pretty direct insight. So if you're selling fish oil and you're trying to pitch the guy on the fact that it's going to make his heart healthier and it's going to make his joints more limber and it's going to help him lose weight because his body will metabolize fat better, then all those things are like, okay, yeah, cool, but not really compelling. But when you say, if you take fish oil, then you will have a 60% less chance of having a heart attack. And if you're a man over 40 and you have a heart attack, your family is screwed. You're done, right? You no longer get to see your children. They grow up without a father. Your wife grows up without a husband, and all that kind of stuff. When you speak to those realities of, if you have a heart attack, you're not gonna make it, or you're gonna be a burden on your family. Those are realities that you can attribute to your product and the non-use of your product. And it's much more compelling than just saying you might lose a little weight by taking some fish oil. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's probably what I'm gonna do as a guru. I just need to probably look at some of the legal requirements around that stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, and I'm not a lawyer, so, but if you can link the effect that their actions have or their non-actions have on other people that they care about to a prevention product, then it's going to massively increase the success of that prevention product. Like they use it in life insurance, car insurance, insurance in general, pretty much. Let's see what other nutraceuticals that are non-direct effect. Yeah, I mean, any product that sells prevention. Hope that helped.
Yeah, I did. Thanks.
Sweet. All right, any other questions, guys?
Nope.
All right, cool. So I'm going to stop the recording. If anything pops up after this, let me know. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to upload it, and I'll also upload the document, even though you'll have the access to it on the recording. Any other questions, comment underneath. If you have problems with the assignment, let me know. I know that a couple of you finished already. And yeah, we'll talk later. I'm working on the feedback today, so everybody who deserves feedback from me will get it either today or tomorrow, and we'll kind of move forward into the last month or so of this program. Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, bud.
All right. Have a good one.